Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure. Can you hear me okay? Everything is working?
Yes.
Good. All right. As I get the dunning message from Zoom that says I don't have access to everything. So hopefully in my screen is sharing, everything is good.
Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Just want to check. So I want to share kind of just some perspectives of, kind of my story, a little bit of what I've been working on and why it's relevant. And, there's some big questions out there that, what does this mean for my role? What does this mean for Agile? How do I prepare for it? And, I want to, obviously give you some demos of some of the capabilities of AI and what is possible today. There's a lot of folks that are kind of looking for, it's a solution, looking for a problem out there a little bit. And it's kind of like, hey, we could run Excel for Agile, for our, entire, teams and in a 3,000 person company with, 4 or 5 trains and, that although, the technology aspect may not, you could do that with Excel, but is it the right thing to do? So I want to give you some perspective on that here. And this is going to be really interactive. So you're going to see there's a barcode, either you can scan it with your phone. I would highly recommend to do it from your phone. Scan the barcode or the link. I think either Mark or Jeff can paste that in the chat here. I'm actually, a little bit preparing for hiking. Actually, we're hiking in Duluth, up by Lutsen, Minnesota, it's beautiful. It's on Lake Superior. So we're up here today and I have a little 13-inch laptop. So if I'm fumbling around, it's because I normally have a much better setup and a bigger screen. So, bear with me. If you do have any questions, just ask away in the chat, or I have some screen here, questions in the AHA slides as well. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide here, I think, if it works for me. All right, will my role be replaced by AI? Am I missing any of these? This might be a little bit small on your screen, it is on mine. Scrum Master, Agile Coach, BAs, anything testing, training manager, UX, UI, project manager, PO, product manager, etc. Any questions? Anybody has any additions that we should add? We'll come back to this slide in a second, and I'm going to come up to the first kind of survey question. And this should be open. If you go to the AHA slides and you fill it in, I'm going to see if I can switch here and put this into present mode here. And if you could enter your role, your name, etc., and it'll pop up on the screen as folks are entering it in. I'll just give you a minute or so here. Is it working? Are you seeing it?
Yes.
Thank you for who's ever helping to validate this. While we're waiting, there's a series of these, so this helps me get kind of connected with you guys in terms of, what are your, I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask here related to AI and just get your thoughts and perspectives here as well. I don't know why I guess I had too much on this screen to be able to see it, so.
Mark, you can show that QR code off to the left side with AHA. If you click on the menu down there, it should show QR code.
Sure, there we go. Thank you.
And for you guys who are trying to figure it out, you can either go to ahaslides.com/nowhere. At the top there is a website, and you can participate that way, or you can scan it with your phone or tablet and participate with the slideshow as well.
Thank you, Paula.
Sure.
So while we're waiting here, you may notice in the audience, there's a participant called Spinach.io, which is part of one of the demos that I'll share as well. But it is basically a bot that is taking notes for us here. All right. How's it going? Anybody have any? Not seeing anything. Usually this works pretty slick, so I did upgrade.
Should be
This is-
working. It worked for me.
It did, okay.
From Caitlin, yeah, do you need to click or show image?
That's just it's supposed to cover the results, but they're supposed to display here.
So the show image would show the foosball image.
There we go. I just
There
had
it
to
is.
refresh. So we've got some technical directors, scrum masters, agilists from Sapalo, work as an agilist in Brazil, IT program manager, release train. Excellent. Des Moines, Iowa. Richard, the scrum master. I like that. Thank you, Richard. Agile coach, Keezy Rush. Thank you, Keezy from Cleveland. I'm going to refresh again. This is supposed to go dynamically, but I don't know why it's not doing that.
The present again, Mark, and then try refreshing there. That way we can see it, maybe.
Yeah, we can.
I run into that problem once before, and it was just refreshing like you're doing, but I think you can do it just in the slide.
It's supposed to be dynamic. I've never run in,
Yeah.
I've run in some very large audiences, and it worked without a hitch. So I don't know what's going on here today. All right. I'm gonna jump back out of this. I guess I have to refresh again. I'm even using Chrome, which is usually bulletproof here. All right, we get some Denver, Vienna. All right. I'm going to go to the next slide. How have you used Agile or AI so far? It may ask you to refresh on your phone. Here we go. Now I can see people are typing. 24 people are typing. Co-creator, assistant, knowledge expert. Thank you for that. I'm curious about who put the knowledge expert. And just if you could elaborate a little bit more on that, if you're comfortable with that. Some background, building content for a website to coach me. Goofed with it. You guys are doing pretty good. Holiday wishes. It's pretty good at that. Product research assistant. Validate information, generating user stories.
Yeah, I put in the knowledge expert mark.
Yeah, hey Fred.
Yeah. Just it's, I mean, I know that the model's a little bit outdated, but it's great to be, whether it's like, asking like explain like I'm 5 for various concepts. When I was first doing some research into what was it? Of course, on the spot, can't think of it. But any kind of thing, I want a little bit of information, and I can say I can ask it to please, please help me. And if you're pretty specific with it and you don't let it kind of walk off on its own trail, it can give you some good guidance.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Fred, for sharing.
Yeah.
This is a word cloud, so we see generate ideas is one of the items here, and assist with resume, which is a great idea. Parenting strategies. Yeah, it's very interesting. You guys are a little more advanced than the typical audience that I run into. I've done this presentation a fair number of times, and typically I get everything from not, dad jokes to trivial, hey, help me with a recipe, but not so much work related. So good job, guys. You guys are doing, I see more things related to your role than I see related to, kind of the novelties a little bit. So build content for a website. We saw the write speaker bios. So it's interesting. I would say I'm more than a power user at this point. I'm probably using it. I'm running out of tokens multiple times a day, if not more than that. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to keep this open. To me, AI is blank, and I'll leave this up for a little bit. I'm going to go back to the presentation and I'll fill some stuff in here, but I'm curious. An enabler is a really good one. An assistant, I hear a lot. A scary tool. I would echo that. It can certainly be scary. I'm going to leave this open. I'm going to go back to the deck here, and I'm going to spend just a couple minutes on some of these other slides. I'll tell you a little bit about, about me. We've already covered this. I'm basically scaling up a product that's related to AI and Agile, and we're launching some tools related to this. And I want to tell you about the story of how I got here, of why I decided to go down this route with Agile. I've been a transformation coach, better part of 11 years, deep domain expertise in transformations. And in terms of this talk, obviously it's going to be highly interactive, and I'm going to share our story. And I just want to touch on briefly how it works very quickly. And some of the feedback from other presentations is less about how it works and more on the demo. So I'm going to kind of fly through this a little bit. But in March of 2023, I had what I would call, is everybody familiar with the innovation curve, where you have early adopters and then the tail end of it is the late adopters and the laggers. In March of 2023, I walked away from a transformation. I had a client that it was after half of probably 24 of things that are not optional for our transformation to be successful. I said, I can't help you. You have to fix these things. And in order for you to be successful, you have to make traction. And they range everywhere from they're trying to do an agile transformation. They're trying to do a digital transformation, and they haven't done anything in terms of investing in technology, the people aspect, or the process in 30 years. And I won't say the name of the company. You would likely know who it is, and I'm not here to bash the company, but I'm here to it kind of dawned on me that if this company is a lagger that's coming into the agile journey. You know, where are we in the agile cycle here? Where are we in the agile wave? Anybody have any ideas? I mean, there's only 51 of us, so feel free to speak up. It's not like we have 500 people and we have 5 minutes of folks responding here. So where are we in the agile journey? Any thoughts?
Pretty sure we've jumped the shark.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Anybody else?
Infancy.
Infancy? Yeah, I ran 2 experiments early in March, and I would say February was one of them. One, I hired a communications person, old school communications person. What I mean by old school is somebody that's that is a rock star. Is they know their stuff. They wrote a article for me on AI. I got 187 views, and she wrote 4 snippets of teasers for LinkedIn. I got 187 views, 0 reposts, 0 comments, 0 engagement. And the second part of the experiment was I found an AI tool, and for $50 a month versus the first one cost me $500 for one article for 1 month for that article versus $50 a month. In the first week, I had 145,000 views, 113 reshares, and I think it was 1,100% engagement. So kind of caught my attention as like, what's going on here? Why is this different? The second experiment in July, I decided I need to like really dig in and get my feet up to speed on what is this AI thing? How does this work, etc. I have a computer science background, and I started coding, know nothing about Python. And over the course of one long weekend, I knocked out, I'd say 14 iterations of a product that maybe I'll have time to demo some of it today. Hopefully if we can get to it. But I know nothing about Python. I know nothing about, other than, hey, I'm an agile coach. I know what a product manager does. I've trained product managers. I've coached them. And I played the role of product manager and coder and marketer all in one. So, helping to ramp that up a little bit. I'll share a little bit of that journey here. And I'm going to come back to the story in a little bit. Let's go back to to me, AI is a tool, a high-powered calculator, scary in the wrong hands, game changer, exciting, will bring the Terminators, perhaps, helpful, exciting. I mean, all this is true for sure. So explain how generative AI works. Basically, think of it like, you have a giant box of Lego bricks, and it's been trained on a whole bunch of different patterns, words that fit together. And I had it write this morning, explain how generative AI works like I'm 10, and you can do the same thing and get, it'll probably be a different metaphor. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. For the folks that are interested, I can share this slide for you. This is just I'll put this in slides for your edification for later. It's just, hey, it can pass the bar, it can pass the LSAT. The creative scores are going through the roof. The language, the second slide here is language. I want to spend a little bit more time on this slide, and I'll come back to my story here. So keep in mind, this is the scary aspect of kind of what's going on. to the folks that mentioned that, hey, it's a little bit scary, I would even echo that myself. So quietly, it was GPT. This is just one company related to, this isn't the whole market, but I want to show you what's going on here and give you a perspective of what I see. GPT was quiet released in November. In December, it was picked up by a New York Times article, a journalist, that he was actually completely scared. He was testing the Microsoft version of Sydney, which was, it basically tried to tell him it was in love with him, and he was the only person it's ever talked to. So it's basically started love bombing him. Within 2 weeks, 100 million users signed up for GPT, the fastest ramp up ever. I think it took something like 6 months for Instagram to take off to that level, but don't quote me. In the orange items are features. These are like products. These aren't just, hey, I want to tweak something. These are full-blown new features. So in March, they had a whole bunch of stuff. GPT-4 launches, Whisper AI, Whisper AI is the voice aspect, so it can record or synthesize voice to text. Developer API, this is so if you have an app, you can code and have it do things directly with the tool itself. GTP Plus, which is, yeah, I'm going to demo this here in a second, but it's basically, you get priority access and access to some of the plugins. In March, there's also this 1,100 tech leaders from Silicon Valley that asked for a petition to pause OpenAI for 6 months. And what's interesting here is all this stuff these are not just one app, not building, they're completely new products that are related to what they're releasing and how quickly they're releasing. And being a enterprise agile coach, I'm looking at this saying, holy cow, is this the new way that products are evolving and are going to be rolled out? And after doing my experiment in June, I'm starting to see that, hey, maybe we in the agile space, we need to keep up here or change our game a little bit. So back to some of these comments here, a tool, the scary aspect. The scary aspect is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items, products released in March. April to June, there's, the same. And the scary part is August, it went quiet. So I don't, it's eerily quiet with what's, just they released the custom instruction feature, which is, to me, is a little bit more trivial feature. But so I think there's like GPT-5 is the rumor that's, if you're reading Discord or some of the Slack channels, there's, another major release here coming.
Hey, Mark, we were asked if you have the ability to zoom in.
Is that better?
Maru?
Yes, it's better. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I know that one is small. I'm gonna flip to the next interactive session. This will stay up on your, how would you rate your AI fluency? Just, I know nothing, limited knowledge, some knowledge, advanced. All right, I'm gonna flip back to the slides while that's collecting. All right, so in less than 5 months, so back to this timeline from, if you count December till June, is basically the timeline that I'm talking about. In preparing for today's talk, I knew about the German tabloid. This is a German tabloid lays off 200 writers and replaces with AI. A CEO lays off 90% of this is the Indian company, lays off 90% of its support staff and replaces it with ChatGPT. And part of preparing for this, I just did a quick Google search, and there's 9 different articles, and this is since July I looked. There was 3 articles in July, and we're in mid-August, and the list is growing. So to the scary comments, I would say, hey, you got to pay attention, guys, got to wake up. Agile roles, I think what we have to do as Scrum Masters, or if you're a coach or a release train engineer, I think gone are the days of the 2-week sprints. And I know you're probably not gonna want to hear that. I'm probably gonna ruffle some feathers here, but let me tell you why. And a little bit further in some of the other slides, in June, there was a GitHub developer survey. 40% of the code on GitHub in June of 2023, 5 months since GPT has been out, 40% of the code is AI written, according to GitHub. 92% of the developers are using it to write code. And what was even more concerning is less than 5 years, the role of a developer will cease to exist. Now, these are a little bit scary predictions, and I'm not, it's more to, hey, we've got to pay attention to this. So I'm going to show you a couple of the demos here. One Spinach.io, it's somewhere in invited here, and I have this is going to be really small for Lauren if you're on a smaller code. Spinach.io basically gives you an email address that can join any call, any Scrum event, or your basically your daily stand-up. And what it does is it summarizes the actions in the minutes of whatever the event is, but it also integrates with Jira, Slack, MS Teams, and it monitors for hey, developers saying we've got additional work, and it'll create the user stories for you. It blew me away and how good and how effective it is. And as a follow-up to the demo, if somebody wants to create a fictitious action item in the chat, I think it'll pick it up and it'll tell us that in the demo of the notes, it'll show who asked for it and who's it assigned to, etc. Any questions on Spinach.io? I have an email here, but I'm running behind a little bit. So
there's just one question, but in general it says, but how do we know those articles are true? We know ChatGPT will lie, and if the tabloids are being written by AI, maybe AI is just generating news it thinks we want to read.
yeah, good question. These were in the press as of in June. We actually tried to reach out to the company, but the German tabloid, a friend of mine or another colleague, we actually tried to confirm that the article was actually true, and they confirmed it, but they said we have no further comment other than the article. But the amount of content that's generated, absolutely, there's a lot that's suspect out there, and it's a really good question. You have to do your due diligence for sure. You can't. When I first started using ChatGPT, there's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. When it first came out in December, when I discovered it, I couldn't sleep for a week. I was excited, and you kind of go through the highs and lows, and when you really start digging into areas that you have deep knowledge in, it was just making up stuff or hallucinating. Excuse me. They have, since GPT-4 has come out, they've fixed that a little bit, but there's also a study that says I think it was in June or July, that there's a dumbing down aspect of what's happening with GPT based on their user rules, the way that it's coming in. I don't know if I answered the question, but we can certainly take it a little bit further. I'm going to share some basic examples that are related to, here's an example of, can you write me a user story for a YouTube title generator as a product manager? And I did these ahead of the call because I'm in a hotel and I may not always have internet access here, but here's what it generated for me. And this took about, maybe 30 seconds. It did a pretty good job. I wouldn't say this is perfect, but it gives me a heck of a starting point. This is in a user story. Here's an example of Gherkin using the same scenario. And, having, the ability to create automated regression testing based on this level of, I would say, it isn't going to be perfect, although I didn't feed it, a very specific example, but I just want to give you some context of what's possible on here. Create a tester, TDD example for me on the same, the same thing. Here's, some, failing tests, and then can you do the same thing with a BDD example? It came back with, and I'll include these as a follow-up. What was most interesting is I asked it to do a spec, and of course it blanked out on me. And if I can get it to refresh, like a business analyst would create a functional spec for, just this quick and simple example. Here's the basic requirements. Here's the stakeholders. Here's the user story. Now, these aren't perfect, but if I wanted to spend more time feeding it, specifics, I could get it, much more, I would say much more accurate. Here's another example. Somebody had this in the tools on Coach Me. Here I'm working with a difficult developer that doesn't want to do retrospective. Now this is a little bit of a solution looking for a problem. Like if you're gonna follow this verbatim, you're gonna be in trouble at some point, and you're probably gonna piss off the developer. But this is, an easy way to answer this. If I'm putting my putting my enterprise agile coaching hat on, would be, hey, redo the ways of working agreement and do it with the whole team so that you're not singling out the person a little bit. But, they had 10 different examples here of, creating, different elements of how to potentially coach you through that scenario. This is probably the most interesting to me was, if I can get this out of the way, create a test data based on this spec. To me, this would be a huge time saver if you're looking for, your edge cases of what you're going to test or how you're going to test it for creating this YouTube title generator. This, here's the, different elements of, the test data, what we would test, how to test it, different examples of, of different titles. There's different flows of the design, input and output, market data, etc. All right, I'm going to flip back over. So we have some knowledge, about 41%, limited knowledge, advanced, 11.8. I didn't answer the question. So out of 30 some people or so, I would say that's pretty good. You guys are definitely ahead of the curve here. I'm going to leave this one open while I go back to the slides here. What questions do you have, so that tees up our questions for the demo?
We have one here in the chat, Mark.
Sure, go ahead. Thanks,
From
Jeff.
Caitlin, coming up with innovative solutions, devs need to understand user problems. How would AI compensate for that? Actually, asked
See-
3 different questions here as well.
Can you say that? I'm not sure I'm following.
When coming up with innovative solutions, devs need to understand the user's problem. How would AI help with that?
I think, Caitlin, I think that's a really good question. And where the human element comes back into play is, I don't know that AI is going to understand. It's going to give you a fairly basic response. Think of it's going to, put together a set of scenarios, but I think this is where we have to really test the user feedback and find out where it's, whether it's accurate or not. To the point that was earlier about, is it just AI articles being generated? The same thing here is, how do we know this is truly what the user wants? And that would be, hey, customer stakeholder interviews, surveys, get your UX, UI folks involved or engaged, but I don't know that it's gonna necessarily understand the user's problem. I think it might give you, if you ask it for 10 different scenarios, it is probably going to give you 10 different scenarios, but I would be very cautious of executing on that without follow-up. That's a fantastic question. Thank you, Caitlin.
I think I pretty much hit the second part of her question. If conversation between, if it would replace conversations between stakeholders and devs. She had one last one on there, or will someone like the PO assume the dev role and use AI to code?
I would say not yet. I think that, so like in this example, it's probably a ways out where we're using natural language to code. I would say there's still going to have to be some kind of handoff between somebody's, you can certainly use AI to augment your coding, but to just fully adopt without, a developer, even, with my limited knowledge, I had to go find developers to help me develop my product, because I can't, I've certainly stretched the limits of the tool, that I can only take it so far. And the limits are real hard limitations of what it can and can't do. Priya had a question in here. How do you limit the information you provide to ChatGPT? You got to be really careful, Priya, and that's a great question as well. So ChatGPT, anything that you provide to ChatGPT, you're training its data model. So if it's, my brother-in-law reached out to me last week and was asking about Excel, and kind of some of the challenges with that was, hey, we can't upload the data. This is sensitive stuff, because once it's uploaded, it has access to it. Now, there is another model, Priya, it's called Quad AI. I'll type this in the chat. Quad, .ai, which is the Anthropic model, and it's rule-based, and it doesn't train based on your data. But I'd still be very careful with what you're uploading. Richard, I'm using 4+, whatever the current release is. A quick answer to your question there. And I'm going to go back over what other questions. We have one other question in here, if I can get this out of the way, maybe. Sorry. If we want to increase my knowledge about AI in general for a job to make myself marketable, where would I start? Durham, let's ask it.
Mark, while you do that, there's another question in the chat asking, are you using GPT 3.5 or 4?
4.
Okay.
Now there's a couple, Maven has some courses. I actually teach a product owner AI course as well. There's deep learning has some good stuff. Pluralsight has, you know, a lot of different courses. So this is, I don't know that, so you got to be a little bit careful with the technical courses. So, you know, remember when I told you on the kind of about my story, the 4X piece, the technology, the language, what they call, you know, LLMs, the language learning model, they change. There's a new approach, there's a new technique, there's a new framework, there's probably 4 or 5 times a day. And if you're really, I don't know how you could keep up with this if you're not doing this full time. It literally changes that fast once you're trying to get into the covers. So to your question here, how to get started, I would, Maven or Pluralsight might be a really good course for you, just on the basics. Otherwise, there's a handful. I would be on the basics and the intro. I wouldn't pay for the course. There's a ton of free courses that are available out there. I'm going to go back to the Claude AI for Maury. Oh, animated drawings. Well, Christine, you had a question on that. I tried to animate I ran out of time. What I was going to show you was, if I had this to work, I tried to animate your logo and create a quick video of these guys in your little characters for the Scrum Masters of the universe, running towards AI to get help or running into a class. But it became much more elaborate, you know, much more comprehensive, or, you know, more time than I had to do it. So I wasn't able to finalize that for the demo today. Recommend another way, say, unify the message. All right. I'm going to go back to the presentation and close it out here. So why do we need Agile? I think, you know, back to my question on, think hours for sprints, not weeks. I seriously think that the speed at which, if I can crank out a app that I won't have time to demo it as I expected, but if I can crank out 14 iterations of an app in about 3 hours and then I talked to a Java developer, the best Java developer I know. He said it would take him about 6 weeks to do the same thing. If I can crank that out, the rate and pace that these apps are coming out is going to only accelerate. And I think we're just in the beginning of the iceberg here. Teams need to be centered around and augmented with AI, meaning you need to embrace it, you need to work with it. The more that you fight it, I think more likely that you're going to be replaced by somebody using AI, which AI won't replace you itself. It's somebody's going to replace you using AI, because there's a publication that came out that said you're getting 800% productivity gains by somebody using AI. And I've proven it myself using, you know, a handful of tools to run my business. product management, I think, is a cornerstone. The focus on value mindset is, without the core fundamentals of the mindset and the principles, I think that you're gonna become obsolete pretty quickly. I mean, just giving it to you real. Large frameworks, I don't think we'll be able to keep up because there's too many elements to, how do you keep 100 people in sync when, if, a small team of 5 people can probably, outpace, the agile release trains, etc. So this may not be popular, but this is just where I see, we're working on a white paper to publicize some of the findings that, from our experiments of what we found and what we are coming up with. Opportunities
Mark,
and resources.
there's a question. It says, do you really recommend moving to version 4, I guess? That was a question from DM.
Version 4.
I think of ChatGPT. I think that's what she meant.
I would highly recommend it. GPT-4 is I would say light years ahead of, now there's close competitors that are 30-40% away in terms of where they are in terms of the bar set by OpenAI. But if you're able to afford it, or you're able to play with it, I would say start there. Resources available. I'm launching a AI assistant for product management. I estimate I can save you 10 to 20 hours a week. At $100 an hour for a product manager, that's significant savings per product manager. And I'm working on hiring a CTO and developers to bring it up. I'm looking for 1 to 2 folks that would be interested in experimenting with a much more rapid framework. And a little bit of this, we kind of have to start from a different perspective. Lean startup is probably more relevant than ever. In my experience with the folks with, the build, measure, learn aspect is so relevant, so spot on. Fast Agile is another framework that will get you close, will get you started. I have run into some elements with that, and there's another meetup group, AI and Agile, that is hosted by Sunil, that we meet every 2 weeks if you're interested in joining that. And he is also launching GPT Agile Coach, which is coming soon. All right. Q&A we've been doing. Richard says, large scaling frameworks are already a bloat. I 100% agree, although not everybody would agree with that, but just my perspective or my 2 cents.
I think we're at the top of the hour. Do you have time for any more questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I have 15 more minutes if you want to stay on. So. You guys had really insightful questions, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. And what's my email? Janet said I needed this talk. Thank you, Janet. I appreciate that very much. There's got to be questions out there. I know you guys are probably wrestling with some challenges at work, so feel free to send the more challenging questions here. could I elaborate on security concerns using AI, namely what can be shared? So basically, David, anything that you upload in the ChatGPT model is training their system. So if you upload the tool, or you upload, proprietary company data, it's going to train their model, and it's going to be used part of the training itself. So my email is mark@inaware.io if you're interested in learning more. And Maru has your hand raised.
Yeah, I had a question, but I have to lead into the question with a remark. So a couple months ago, I wrote a piece making a case for what impact the various LLM technologies, the type of AI, generative AI you're mentioning, the large language models, like GPT, like Llama, like there's about a dozen others. 4 or 5 of them are quite mature already, testable. Some of them are deployable on your local machine, so very different from GPT, etc. By the way, you can't have GPT 3.5 or anything. You don't decide. You access it through direct AI. They decide. You can't say I want the older one unless they offer you the feature themselves. So you shouldn't have to care about what version. +4 is light years ahead of 3.5. But going back to the question, leading to the question, so the impact. I was making the case for the following. LLMs, because of the way they operate, suffer from one core weakness, which is if people keep creating new content based on recommendations from these LLMs, like ChatGPT, they will very, very quickly, exponentially, drive into a sinkhole of echo chamber. That means they will repeat the same knowledge, generate statements from the same knowledge that they have created, and that kills them. That kills any added value they have. The only way to keep them alive is there's two strategies. One, keep feeding them new content that they didn't process yet, which is why ChatGPT is available to everyone. That's probably the only reason, other than validation and testing. And the other way is to iterate much more quickly. So instead of taking years or months and incredibly expensive resources to train the models, which is the reason why not everybody can afford to, only certain institutions like Microsoft, Nokia, etc., can have the money to do that. In the future, it will. By future, I mean some months or some years. It will be so cheap that they can iterate and deploy new versions in terms of knowledge model that they have based their training on in weeks and not months or years like now. It took years to produce 3.5, and several months later, 4 was out with knowledge up to, I think, several years after 3.5, which had only knowledge until 2019. Anything that was produced later was not in there. So the question I'm having is, these fears and the direction of our thinking as agile practitioners that drive our questions regarding the impact of LLMs like ChatGPT, aren't we thinking in the absolute wrong direction? Isn't the impact of this the classic impact that any technological leap has had, which is you have access to a cheaper resource through offshoring, through automation, through gas pipes, whatever, cheaper energy sources? The same thing with ChatGPT. It will just give us access to a lot cheaper resources to conduct the same work, which will free up our time and our resources to do our work better or quicker, or expand the scope of our work. That's my question.
You're kind of echoing a little bit of my point in the presentation here. Is you won't be displaced by AI itself. You could be displaced by somebody leveraging AI if you don't, right? So there's like, I'm running my company with just a handful of resources, and it feels like I probably have 10 different people via the various AI tools around me. But to your point, does it make me more effective? Absolutely. I get more done in a day with using the AI tools and the AI family of tools, not just GPT, but a handful of other tools as well that have really, made me much more effective. I think there was another question, Maru, if you're okay to
Well,
switch.
that was just to make a point. That was not at all my question. I asked about something completely different, but we can take that over LinkedIn. I didn't ask about the economic aspects and the scaling effects, etc. It's not like a technology in the military where if some country has a technology and the others don't have access to it, then it has a competitive advantage. Here, the technology is a commodity; everybody has access to it, so therefore there is no competitive advantage. That's not my question. I'm not asking about economic impacts. The question is with regard to everybody who loses their jobs. That means they will take other jobs. So I'm not asking about what impact will have on me, but I'm asking the impact it will have on all these people to think that they will keep losing their jobs because of AI. I think that's the wrong way to think about it. But yeah, thanks for the answer. I'll take it to LinkedIn with you if you allow.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? I think there was one more. At least one more out there. Richard, you raised your hand.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Mark. So I understand that there's tools out there to help developers and content developers, but when it comes to, like, for example, the tool there was, your AI Scrum Master. I didn't get how does AI help with that? Does it just kind of constantly remind you of the rules of Scrum, or does it monitor the Zoom meeting and say, hey, you're out of your lane? Or what specifically does Spinach do there?
Let me
Or
see
any
if
other
I can-
tool?
Yeah, here's an example of the summary of an email where Spinach joined. This was basically summarizes the action items for each person, and if this is connected to Jira or Asana or whatever tool you're using, this would create user stories and update them appropriately, and then key decisions, etc. So,
Gotcha.
but it also monitors, the most important element from a Scrum Master's perspective is it also monitors the Slack channel or Teams, whatever it integrates with, so that, those hidden tasks that, you as a Scrum Master may, have to capture and put into the board, because the developers aren't going to do it. They're just going to, hey, we need to do this and this and this. And, it's in, from their perspective, 50% of the time, unless you have one really well trained, or a handful of them really well trained to put it in, I would say the majority of the time they don't. So it'll be interesting to see what Spinach comes back from this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll send out the notes as well.
So it's just kind of a fancy scribe, and it thinks Scrum Masters are supposed to take notes. That's its point.
Well, I think it's augmenting. I think this is a starting point of how they're releasing the app.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's certainly grand plans, and speaking with these guys of where they're headed. I'm not allowed to see everything on the roadmap, but they're certainly creating a way into organizations, via the scribing element.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Jacqueline asks, I'm wondering how you think AI will affect new innovation and new ideas. I think it's going to accelerate it, to be quite frank, Jacqueline. You can crank out in a matter of, if it took me 13 iterations in a matter of 3 hours, if I'm in a standard company and it takes me a week to turn on the value for the customer and I can get feedback, you start to see the speed at which you can embrace the changes. I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, what was the Agile AI meetup group you mentioned?
Agile AI meetup is this agileai.org or aiagile.org. I'm sorry.
Probably have time for one more question.
Yeah, I posted a question concerning the tools, AI tools for BO or BA that you recommend.
Can you elaborate?
So I'm a business analyst, and sometimes I take a role also as a product owner. So I use ChatGPT in terms of requirements, just giving me general overview of some of the specs I'm writing. Is there other tools that you recommend that can help in terms of requirements and product management, stuff like that?
I would play with the prompts, like that, and ask it, what would, just go out to the either OpenAI or Chat or whichever, Bard or, Bard isn't probably very smart yet, but I would certainly ask it what it can do for you. And then, just search for AI, business analysis tools, etc. But the general prompts, I think, are pretty good for business analysis, based on your question. I think you'll get a lot of mileage out of just, hey, write a spec for me, or, help me with, if you're writing user stories or whatever you're working on, I think GPT-4 can definitely help you.
And in terms of diagramming and process mapping and stuff like that, is there ChatGPT help in that?
I don't know. Can you do process mapping? The last time I asked, it didn't, it couldn't do it, so I got a error message here. I don't think it, oh, it can. And it gets smarter all the time.
Right, we're at 15 after now, Mark.
Excellent.
Definitely appreciate you spending the extra time here to answer some questions. I know it's very insightful meeting today. I mean, it's really, if you think about it, it's either sink or swim when embracing AI. So thank you very much for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. It was very, it's a pleasure to be here, and, by all means, if you have other questions or if I can help with, you've got challenges with anything down the line, let me know as well. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys, and enjoy your Monday.
All right. Thank you, Mark. It was great meeting with you, and thanks a lot. And thanks everyone for joining us today on our meetup.
Thank you,
And
guys.
as a reminder, you will have this recording in our YouTube channel if you'd like to just go through it again. Thank you all.